really giving soccer an edge, a rock and roll edge. So my content, the idea was like, can I give soccer a rock and roll edgy vibe to it? So it doesn't matter if I'm filming for like an academy and doing a commercial. It always had to have this kind of like feel and texture that was a little dangerous.
All right, and we are back again, episode 34 of the Box to Box podcast presented by GOLZtv. I am your mainstay host, Jose Tellez. I am joined by one of our other mainstay hosts, Andre Gutierrez, aka Coach Dre, and we are not alone today as we are normally joined by a special guest on the show. I'm so excited to introduce him. This guy's a jack of all trades, has a channel on YouTube that is disrupting the soccer space in the best way possible. The guy's a dad, a husband, a father of I would say two. Is it two? Just two? It's probably more than that. Two amazing soccer players that I've seen on the internet.
Listen,
and
one for sure.
One for sure. And a filmmaker and that's telling stories that I just really haven't seen on the internet in terms of other communities that are building in this game today. So I'm excited to have him join us today. Jared from Soccerrazzi. Jared, we're recording on a Monday afternoon, man. How are you?
You guys, I'm really excited to join both of you today. When I checked my calendar and I knew that I had you guys in my calendar, I was just thrilled, man.
That's awesome.
I was really
excited to be here. Yeah, absolutely, man. So look, as I normally kind of tee up this show and what we're going to talk about today, everyone already knows you are the guest of honor. You control the narrative. We're going to be telling your story today. So let's start from the beginning, okay? I asked this question to everybody on the show. Don't let it stump you. Answer it any way that you see fit, and we'll kind of go from there. Jared, who are you today?
You know what, Jose? It's a good question, and I think every morning I wake up with kind of the existential philosophical question of like identity and who am I? Who are we? Why am I here? Who the fuck even really cares, to be fair, right?
Yeah.
So, listen, it's a good question. My dad was a philosophy professor for 40 years. My mom's a psychologist still practicing. So I had these kind of questions growing up at the dinner table all the time, right? But wow. I was the kid that was listening to punk rock while my mom and dad are having these conversations about, does God really exist? Or somebody got sexually abused, in Las Cruces, New Mexico. So, so I grew
all over the place.
Yeah, all over the place. But to answer your question, who am I? I'm a dad. I'm a passionate footy fan. I am angry. I am mostly frustrated. I am a guitar player and singer-songwriter. I'm a filmmaker. I'm a documentary filmmaker. I do soccer content. But I'm mostly in charge of my 13-year-old boy who is a project that I'm really excited about, but it's a full-time job trying to manage him, especially when his nickname is El Diablo, because he's fucking impossible.
Where does that come from? Where does that nickname come from? Is that why? Solely why?
Anybody that's had to deal with the kid has basically agreed that really is fitting for him, because he is a devil. He's impossible.
So if you had to use an emoji to describe him, as the purple devil emoji, then
yeah, well,
the demon emoji.
Yeah,
I can't use a red devil because he's a City fan. So
yeah, and let's that's an interesting point right there, right? Does he live in Manchester, or has he been out there quite a few times?
We've been spending the last half a year at City, so he trains at Man City, and then we're back now, but going back to England in the end of April.
Okay.
He just actually, which is kind of breaking news. I don't know how cool this is, but it's kind of cool. He became the youngest player in UPSL history to ever sign a contract yesterday.
No
wow.
way.
So
Congratulations. Holy shit, that's awesome.
That's
He's
huge.
the youngest player ever in America to play semi-professional.
That's
Look,
sick.
El Diablo needs to be very, very proud of that. That is a massive deal. That is
That's
huge.
awesome.
I think you should be 100% proud of that. Yeah, that's very, very cool. Well, look, tell him we're proud of him. I think that's awesome. And we'll talk about him a little bit here in a few minutes.
Yeah.
But I think with how this show typically starts, let's start at the beginning, man. You mentioned a ton in terms of how you define yourself.
Yeah.
I would list all of that out and then some. But your channel, the content that you create, which I think has, it's scaled from everything from, rock star interviews up to footy content. So let's start at the beginning. Soccerrazzi, for those who aren't familiar with the channel, let's talk about the origin days of it, how it scaled maybe from the Rockerazzi days to where we are today with Soccerrazzi.
Yeah. Good question. First of all, I got to say, Jose, you guys have voices that are perfect for podcasts, right?
Thank you so much.
Thanks
I appreciate that.
Like you guys are going to do this. This is pro, man.
Thanks, man.
You guys sound the part. You look the part. You guys are ready to do this.
I love it. Thank you so much. Really, really kind words.
No. So, so listen, it started with Rockerazzi. This is a very long story, but I will truncate it. Rockerazzi was an idea. I live in Beverly Hills. I go on walks all the time. I started to befriend the paparazzi. So I became I would walk by all the famous restaurants, and they all be, "Hey, Jared, what's up? What's up?" And I had this idea one afternoon at the gym. I was working out, and I called my brother up, who lives in San Diego, big soccer guy. He's a sports psychologist, was the sports psychologist for Sven Goran Eriksson when he was at England. So,
wow.
And that's it. You should talk to him. But anyway, so I go, dude, I got this idea. Right. This is when TMZ was popping. I go, you know what?
It was everything.
I'm going to go buy a fucking video camera. I'm going to go and I'm going to sit outside and I'm going to talk to celebrities about music, because I see all the paparazzi and they just pissed the celebrities off because they just want photos and they're agitating them. So I was like, what if I could just talk about music with them? Would they engage? Could I be like a roaming Rolling Stone street reporter? Would it work? So I bought a little mini DV camera from Best Buy, and then I hit the streets and I started interviewing celebrities. And my big question was to them really was was there a concert that was pivotal in your adolescence that kind of was transformative in the way that you felt about music? And it could be anybody. It could have been Snoop Dogg or Robert Duvall or Al Pacino. It didn't matter. I was always talking about music. And the celebs loved it. And what happened was they gave me the nickname Rockerazzi because I would show up and I wasn't a paparazzi, but I was a Rockerazzi. And so the paparazzi would call me up and be like, "Hey, Jared, where are you going to be tonight?" Because they knew if I was there, then they would get their shot. They would get their photos because I was interviewing them and they were talking to me. So I did that for a while. I got some great interviews. I loved it. It was cool. Then TMZ started watching my interviews, and Harvey was like, "Dude, we need you to work for us." So he invited me in. I go, "Harvey, you guys are the fucking devil." I go, "I want nothing to do with you. I'm trying to do the opposite of what you guys are doing." I'm like, "What you should do is buy Rockerazzi. Then you have the angel and the devil, right? And why don't you just start that?" He's like, "Oh, maybe. It never happened." Then the Grammys, like the Grammy Foundation was like, "Hey, we love your interviews. We're going to hire you to do our red carpet interviews." So then I did a bunch of work for the Grammys and did all the red carpet interviews.
Jared, this whole story is crazy. So let me pause you there really quickly. So, you mentioned these people were taking notice. I mean, was anybody else doing this at the time? Was anybody else doing these celebrity interviews?
No.
How did you even land on the idea?
I don't know. It was just because it mostly came from seeing the interaction between the celebrity and the paparazzi. And I was like, there's got to be a better way to interact with a celebrity. And I just did it for almost to see if I could do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I ended up loving it because I love to talk to people and I love music. And so I was meeting celebrities and I was in these full blown 20-minute conversations with celebs about music. I'd be like, do you think about, I was asking them really kind of heavy philosophical questions like, do you think about legacy? What does your legacy mean to you? Do you think like if there was a last song that you would listen to before you knew you were passing away, and like all these kinds of things.
Wow.
And they were engaged, like everybody from Hulk Hogan to Mr. T to Mark Wahlberg, to, like you name it. I interviewed everybody.
That's awesome.
And it was cool. And then I just decided that I could do the same approach with soccer. And that's when Soccerrazzi started. So
yeah, that's crazy. So that transition though, let's touch on that just for a few seconds. So with the transition itself, you did that with celebrities. I imagine you met so many cool people. If you look at the depths of your channel, the library, I mean, there's so many celebrities at the tail end of that thing.
Fun.
At what point? I mean, was it your children? Was it another? I don't know, something you noticed in the market. What was the transition like from rock music and celebrities over to soccer?
Yeah, I mean, listen, for me, always my two passions were music and soccer. So, I played soccer in college. I went to SMU in Dallas. So I played Division I.
Oh, nice.
And then I went
right back here.
Right down the street, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm actually moving back to Dallas.
Love it.
But, awesome. And then I played in Germany and Sweden for about 2 seasons. Nothing crazy, but like third division stuff.
I love that.
And then I got hurt, and then I just started really falling in love with music. And so I think if I didn't have that music transition, I probably would have like offed myself or whatever. So the Soccerrazzi thing was like, okay, nobody's really giving soccer an edge, a rock and roll edge. So my content, the idea was like, can I give soccer a rock and roll edgy vibe to it? So it doesn't matter if I'm filming for like an academy and doing a commercial. It always had to have this kind of like feel and texture that was a little dangerous.
Yeah.
Okay? And that's really my thing. And so people don't hire me to film things that are safe and very in the box and cookie cutter. Like they hire me because they want to push it creatively. And frankly, I'm not interested in doing things at this point that aren't, as we said, kind of disrupting by nature.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what gets me off now is like, can I entertain and provoke a thoughtful conversation with somebody around soccer? Listen, there's so many problems, and we can, like you said, we could go on for days about the problem with youth soccer in particular in the United States. But it just runs so deep, and the system is so broken, and it's so fucked up. And, I don't, honestly, I'm not super optimistic about it. I don't foresee it getting better.
I'm inclined to agree with you. I think there's so much that plagues, and we won't go into. We've actually touched on it before in this series with the podcast that we've done. There's plenty of guests who have come on, and we've griped about the problems with soccer, and we won't rehash those. But I think one thing I wanted to really kind of ask. I mean, you mentioned bringing this edge creatively, pushing creative boundaries to create this content. I personally noticed it a ton in that 5-part series, which I think, I don't know, now probably has close to 100 million views in terms of Young Ronaldo.
Yeah, that's what blew up the channel, Jose. If it wasn't for Young Ronaldo, which he's my nephew, right?
Okay, gotcha.
If it wasn't for that, the channel wouldn't be where it is. That was what created the buzz around the whole channel.
That's awesome.
That first Young Ronaldo, which I couldn't like. Listen, anybody that can tell you that they know how to produce viral videos is full of shit. It's like you honestly don't know. I've had ideas that I was like, you know what? I'll bet the house on this that this is going to pop, and it never did.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. And something like Young Ronaldo, for some reason, touched a nerve emotionally with people, and I still get people coming up to me at the field like, "Oh my god, it's
the dream. It is literally every kid's dream. Like I can't say any better. Like it is every kid's dream. You want to be able to move, whether it's another state here in the States or it's like, abroad, like your son's doing, overseas. Like you want to be able to just say that you're out there living the dream. I think of that movie, Goal.
Yeah.
Right.
With Santiago
Muñoz. Yeah, bro, that story. It's like every kid wants to live that in real life. I mean,
for sure.
Did you know going in that Young Ronaldo was going to be a hit?
No. I honestly, it was. Part one was just a result of me trying to do a project when I was like, I grew up in New Mexico, in Las Cruces, New Mexico, like
Okay.
Nowhereville. And part of it was like every Christmas break, I'm like the guy that goes back home and like, hey, we're going to film a video. And they're like, no, it's, so I always ruin the vacation because I want to do something creative.
Yeah.
So I had a song, one of my songs on my record that I had released called Start Over Again. I go, you know what? My nephew looks a lot like a little Ronaldo. I go, we should do this kind of story about like a young Ronaldo. And it just was a music video. It was only 3.5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
But the story, like for some reason, touched people.
That's awesome.
And then it got shared, and so literally like my brother and I are watching the numbers just go, right. And he's calling me up. He's like, do you see how many views are on this thing? I go, no. And we were like high-fiving, like virtually like at like 50,000 views. We're like, this is crazy. 50,000
W, yeah.
Right. And then we wake up the next morning and it was at 1 million. And I was like, no way. And then I'm watching all my AdSense money. I'm like, it's like, right. I'm like, dude, I'm making cash on this. So I'm like, part 2, we got to do part 2. And
I was going to ask you, like, if once you saw part 1 kind of blow up, were you like, all right, let's keep this moving? That's awesome. Yeah. Because a lot of times we've talked to content creators where they're like, like I have one video that blew up. And then from there, it's kind of like, well, I'm going to keep doing things status quo or maybe not take advantage of that momentum. But it sounds like you were like pretty aware of what that meant for your channel. That's awesome.
Yeah. And it really was like, Andre, for real, it was mostly about the comments that we were getting.
Yeah.
That were like, give us part 2. We love it. Like, or a parent would be like, my son goes to bed, before he goes to bed, he watches it every night. Or, and we're just like, wow, this is really heavy. And as a content creator, whether it's YouTube or film or whatever, and I'm sure directors and filmmakers say this, but for me in particular, like when you're able to kind of reach somebody, like then that's what it's for. It's like, especially with soccer, right? If soccer is your passion and you're able to create something that somebody finds motivation and inspiration or some kind of spirituality or whatever it is in it, you're like that's why you do it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the whole point.
So it's actually funny that you mentioned that in terms of storytelling, because, obviously with Kobe, it's going to be his 3rd anniversary right of his death, which is pretty sad. But, I was on Twitter earlier and somebody tweeted Kobe's like almost like top 10 beliefs, or like what he woke up every day and he followed these top things, right? And it was like, learn from your mistakes, doesn't matter, get better, file it, move on, like things like that are more philosophical. But number 10 was learn storytelling in order to get to people. And so it's really interesting that you're able to like kind of tie it in, because it's true. I mean, it doesn't matter if you have no voice. It doesn't matter if you have 2 followers on YouTube. You never know who's going to be watching your content.
And I think what resonated most for me with that young Ronaldo series every time was the stuffing the picture of the grandparents into the shin guard, into the sock. Like for me, that's what hit it. I was like, wow, this is it's there's not even a ton of like dialogue, right? It's still a music video, but it's the emotional attachment you have to certain instances within the video series itself that really I think gets any aspiring soccer player to be like, oh my God, I love this video, or take it a step further. All right, I'm going to use them as motivation every day to get better and get better. So did that over time like translate to the other part of your business, which for those who don't know, that Sagal online soccer academy, like where did that come from? You're a filmmaker, you know how to tell stories. How did that translate into helping players get better at developing?
Yeah, I think it's all, like you said, Jose, it's all related and all intertwined, right? Because it's all about how to reach kids and with a particular methodology, right? So my methodology in filmmaking and content creating is no different than the way I privately train kids. It's the same thing. Like for me, it's about the truth. Simple as that. And so, and sometimes the truth is really difficult, especially if you're coaching and you're a player, right? I mean, unfortunately, my son suffers the brunt of most of this, right? Which is why he fires me almost every other day as coach.
We've been there.
El Diablo. Yeah. So, but I really feel strongly, especially in coaching, is like, give the kid the truth. And listen, I'm pretty brutal with it, because like, I don't think you're doing anybody any favors by sugarcoating anything, especially when it comes to sport. Okay. And soccer, right?
Yeah. Especially in these formative years, right? Like when you're
exactly. Listen,
these are pivotal years. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The odds, you guys, of a kid really making it is fucking impossible.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. But it's not why you do it. Okay. You do it because you should squeeze the lemon, the potential, as much as you can. Because that's what it's about. It's about maximizing who you are as a player and a person. Yeah. Right? You're going to have limitations. Okay? You're going to if you're not fast now and not physically a freak, you're never going to make it. Before, if you were Xavi or Iniesta and you can kind of walk the midfield and have a crazy soccer IQ, you know what I mean? You're playing in the future all the time. Yeah. How many guys are like that right now? Zero. Almost, right? You can't carry a guy like that right now. Okay? Yeah. So I tell my son, I go, you know what? Let's get you as good as we can get you. Okay? Yeah. And it'll be the adventure and the journey. If you end up playing footy, right, and you're not in the EPL or the Bundesliga, it doesn't matter. Maybe you go and play third division in Scandinavia or Norway. You learn a language. You learn about wine. You fall in love. You get culture. You're a man or a woman of the world at that point. That's what it's about. That's more realistic.
Yeah, I love that.
You know what I mean?
No, that makes sense.
Have parents, I'm sure I have parents like, hey, my kid's going to go play in the EPL. I go, you know what? No, they're not.
Yeah.
No, they're not.
Let's be realistic about this.
Andre gets them all the time. He's a club coach. There's no way you don't get those parents, bro, that are just bought into like, hey, my child has to play because he's going to be the next. Insert professional name here.
I mean, dude, I was literally I just came back from Arizona. I was down there for 10 days coaching a tournament, and a couple of the parents were like, oh yeah, so on our free time we went to check out ASU, and we're gonna go check out all these other colleges and stuff because my kid really wants to play D1, and it's like. To your point, Jared, like you got to be honest with every kid, right? Like not every kid's going to play D1. And maybe if parents were aware that, hey, he could go to like a JUCO or like a D3 or an NAIA school that's like a really solid program that matches, what he wants from an academic standpoint, and it's not a massive school, maybe the kid would be really into it. Yeah. But it's this idea of like he has to go to a big school, he has to go D1. And so it's to your point, Jose, like I get these questions all the time of like, can you please get to my kid, or can you talk to him? Can you coach him, mentor him, because he doesn't listen to us. It's like, because it's broken. Like there's no education on either end, and there's a disconnect in terms of realistic expectations of where your kid's going to end up.
And it doesn't mean, Andre, right? It doesn't mean that your job has changed as a motivator, right? It's the same, right?
Yeah. I coach him the same way.
Exactly. There's no difference. Right.
No,
you just want to build the kid into maximizing his potential. Period.
100%. So, Jared, one thing that I wanted to touch back on from the beginning of the show when we asked you who you are today, you said two words. I'm always kind of in tune with like emotional like connections and things like that, and you said you're frustrated and you're angry. So I don't want to put you on the spotlight, but do you want to kind of elaborate a little bit more into why you're feeling?
Yeah, I think that way. My anger mostly it revolves around being on the field, and not being able to be in control.
Yeah.
Okay, and so I think a lot of parents of players will understand this, or parents that coach or that played, and that also have children. I don't know if you guys have kids. You're probably too young to have kids.
I'm preparing to be a father for the first time. So about two and a half months away. Yeah, thank you. So I'm and we're already buying the baby onesie kits, and we're getting them ready for the fandom, right? But I'm listening intently because I want to be at this stage where I understand that the lack of control that a parent has, we have to come to terms with. So what was it like for you trying to understand that part of it?
You know what? It doesn't get any easier. I mean, I've coached, when you coach your kid basically from the beginning, and then, you always know that like the end result is that you're not going to coach your kid. And in many ways, you start looking forward to not being able to coach your kid. But it comes with an innate sense of dissatisfaction with just the environment that the kid is in. You know what I mean? It's like the coaching is not good. The environment's not good, especially here. But I got to tell you, in Europe, like, you know, a lot of the time it's not much better.
Yeah.
I hate to break it. It
just depends, right?
It really depends. It depends. So there's kind of a constant frustration knowing that it's about opportunity costs, right? So if I have my kid for an hour and a half versus me farming him out on a weekend and throwing him into a game or a session, you know, for an hour and a half, I'm like, listen, like the hour and a half for me is not good enough, right? Like, and so I guess I don't know what the easy solution is aside from just really trying hard to find a good environment. And then as a parent, right, learning to work really hard on trying to just let go.
Yeah.
That's going to be difficult for me. I can tell you right now, it probably will be very difficult. But I'm actually very curious because I'm hearing all of this, and I feel like so many and higher up places can learn from this conversation. When you think about these realistic expectations you're setting for maybe some parents out there who are newer to the soccer scene or just now getting their kids into soccer, how does the situation revolving around Gio Reyna, Claudio Reyna, the U.S. men's national team?
Sure.
I don't know. As a parent yourself, as a soccer parent, how did you receive that?
Yeah, I mean, it totally not surprising to me. I mean, that is the culture that we produce here. So,
yeah,
I mean,
I think it's reflective, right?
Totally. You know, if you have a system that depends upon the financial demands
pay to play
the parent, right? It's going back to pay to play. We could, you know, it's all that stuff. But listen, you get it, right? If you're a parent and I'm going to give you $4,000 for the season, okay, and I don't get the product that I want, right? I'm going to be mad, right? And it doesn't give the Reynas, listen, I'm not defending them at all, but I understand it. Okay. It's like it's the entitlement of the American soccer parent. So, and all you've seen at this point with the Reign is that it's just climbed the ladder.
Yep.
Okay. And now we're talking about a national team. Okay. But it is the plague of American youth soccer. It is. It's, you know, doesn't happen.
So, yeah. No, and that's what I was going to ask you. I think you're kind of getting at it. Like, it doesn't really happen anywhere else. And I know, you know, your kid training with City, you know, 6 months out of the year, you see it firsthand. So for you, what do you think is, right? Like, it's one of those things that like, it's not even part of the conversation. Like, it just, you kind of let it.
Andre, the parents, wherever you go in the world, parents are bitching to other parents about playing time, right? But it will never go up the ladder to where, like, you know what, it just wouldn't.
Yeah,
it wouldn't.
That's really, crazy. I don't know. It's so interesting to me. I don't know. Whenever this whole thing unraveled, I thought immediately, like, if anyone didn't understand what the ecosystem of American soccer looked like, this is it. This is a perfect representation of it, because never anywhere else in the world will you see a parent who has, I would say, not just the ability to do that. Of course, the Claudio is somewhat of a, you know, people today, our fans today are calling him someone who is just better than the average player coming up, but he captained USA for 2 World Cups. I mean, he does carry a certain amount of weight in certain circles. So he has the ability, but I think most parents wouldn't act on the motivation to go up and talk to the coach. And you see it so often in club soccer. It's honestly what steers me away from wanting to coach. I mean, Jared, today with your coaching academy, how often do you deal with parents or maybe some of these same issues?
I don't. So with this online academy, it started really because I was in Europe and I needed a way to hold on to the clients that I had stateside. And I wanted to do something that was not like Zoom soccer training, but was more of a kind of 360-degree holistic approach to developing a kid. And that involves like ball mastery stuff online, but it's much more than that. And so, I designed this with my brother really for like our kids, my brother and I's kids, like what would we want for them if we could design a program, right? What we would want is somebody to be on their ass that wasn't the parent. What we would want is somebody to teach discipline, accountability, nutrition, right? Work ethic, like things that are really not taught in traditional club soccer settings.
Yeah.
Okay. Because only part of it, right, is being on the field. And so that's really what our academy does. It's like we have 7 kids now, which is really all we can really take, because the parents get us 24/7. Whenever they need anything, they can reach us. So it can be like, hey, what kind of boots should I be getting for soft ground? My hamstring hurts. What should I be doing? Or the coach benched me. So it's just, we're kind of soccer Sherpas. Anything that they need, we do it.
That's awesome.
Anything. And so, and it's worked, which is crazy. Like, I can't believe that it's worked, but the parents pay monthly. It's not inexpensive. Okay. And, the parents are seeing results both technically and emotionally.
Yeah,
that's incredible.
To me, it actually does make sense that it works. I think that you can only get so much out of a handful of training days throughout the week in a bigger group setting, like a team.
Yeah.
And some teams nowadays, right, with certain clubs, I mean, it can be 20, 30 players in terms of the team that trains together. So, I mean, having individual attention from a coach who's been there, done that, playing-wise, coaching-wise, that all clicks in my mind. I mean, depending on how far you think your child can go, I know I would pay for the extra attention. I would pay for someone to just be waiting on me, kind of hand and foot, so to speak, to make sure that all of my questions are answered. So when do you think you'll open up with the opportunity to take on, I don't know, another set of clientele?
And it's not really scalable.
Yeah.
And we've had conversations with people that want to make an app and to do, to make this into something bigger, but that dilutes the product. And so right now it's just like a cool lifestyle business, makes enough money. It's fine. But, again, it's more about like, can I reach a few of these kids? You know what I mean? And and listen, these are kids that are on a pro pathway for sure.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so that's exciting. And so like, let's see if we can bring a couple of these kids all the way through in a different development path.
Yeah.
Okay. This is in addition to club soccer. Okay. Right now, this cannot be a full substitute for it.
Because you need the competition to execute.
This slots into their schedule.
Yeah.
Okay. But 100% is probably more valuable than 99, or it's 100% more valuable than most of their team training.
So what age groups do you have now? Like you said, you have 7 kids.
The youngest, I have a 9-year-old from Brooklyn, New York.
That's awesome.
Wow.
Who's like a little baller. But if you see how this kid, it's just crazy, man, because part of what I do is convince the parents to completely renovate their living situation. Okay. So in Brooklyn, they had an outdoor patio and they were going to have this botanical, plant and stuff. I go, listen,
nope.
I go, do you want your kid to be good or not? Period. Okay. Yeah, we want him to be good. I go, well then scratch the plants. Oh, but we just spent $5,000 on plants. I go spend another $5,000 and turf it. Yeah. Go get some mannequins. Here's your rebounder. Okay. And here's the goal. And they just converted this, and it becomes their soccer laboratory. Yeah. Right. But the kid lives out there now. He's clocking hours and hours in his playground. And that's how you get good.
Yeah, that is. Yeah. It's funny because
on the ball.
Yeah. Because Jose and I have talked about it. We kind of came from similar backgrounds. I grew up in Mexico, actually, so I play for the youth development teams out there.
Nice.
And then Jose played for his club team in Texas. But the way that we kind of bonded over, like, not only just like football fandom, but just like football in general is our upbringing, right? Like if you see a kid the second you pass the ball to somebody and they take 1, 2, 3 touches, you know immediately that guy is not just going to practice for 90 minutes on Tuesdays and Thursdays. He has a ball stuck, like glued to his foot 24/7. And so I think you make a really good point of like, you can't just expect soccer to be part of your life. It's almost like soccer has to be your life. That's the only way.
And to close it out, because I got to run a second, but a good analogy I use a lot because of the music is it's like playing guitar. Mm-hmm. Okay, so when you watch guitar players that start or that haven't played guitar very much, right? They're playing guitar and they're looking at the chord
looking at it. Yeah.
Okay, and that's how you know that guy is not one with his instrument, mm-hmm. right? But when you see guitar players and they could be looking up, they could be looking in the crowd, and their fingers, they're just going, right? Yeah. It's just going. And that's the way you have to be with the ball. Until you get to that point where you're not mm-hmm. having to think, then mm-hmm. you're not clocking in enough hours. But
that's a great analogy, and that's a great way to close it out. I love that. So, look, before we actually close it out in the show, Jared, I want to give you one platform to kind of talk about really quick. What's next for Soccerrazzi? What's coming to the channel? Is it more stuff with Brighton? Is it more stuff with, just kind of those training videos to build up the value prop for the soccer academy? What's next? Yeah.
So there's 2 things. One is we're getting super close to getting Young Ronaldo picked up as a series. So that's
wow.
Yeah. So the idea is like All-American, but for soccer. I don't know if you watched All-American or not.
No, I have.
Yeah. So that's the idea. So hopefully, in the next month or so, we'll find out about that. I know, which would be sick.
It would be sick.
Yeah. And then I've been documenting Brighton's semi-pro thing. So like for the last 7 months, he's been training with adults, waking up at 6 a.m, driving to San Fernando Valley, 45 minutes, going through a whole preseason with a UPSL team. So I've got, and I'm calling that going semi-pro. And so that's going to be kind of the story of a 12-year-old at the time trying to make a semi-pro team. So,
dude, that's insane, man. I can't wait for that series to drop. I think it's going to be awesome. Please, we'll be following the channel anyway. We're subscribed, but let us know when it does. And it's going to be, I think, an awesome, thing to tune into. So with that said, look, Jared, you took a lot of time out of your day-to-day to come on the show. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Andre and I are definitely going to watch this one back and probably, I'm jotting notes down as a future parent, but either way, regardless of
one thing, Jose, before I go, okay? I teach you a little, this is for your kid. This is basic behaviorism. Okay, so from the very beginning, you got to buy candy corn. Okay, buy a bunch of candy corn. Right? Okay. Every good thing that your kid does. So you put him in the Jolly Jumper, right? The Jolly, right? You put him in that thing using diapers. You swing his foot into the ball. Boom. Right. You and your wife or your fiance, your girlfriend, whatever. Right. You're like, yeah. Okay, and then
celebrate.
And then you break off a piece of candy corn and you put it into his mouth. Okay, and then you do it again, and then he hits the ball. Boom.
And he's just expecting it.
Yeah, and eventually he doesn't need the candy corn anymore. Okay,
that's awesome.
Because you don't need the stimulus after a while, right? The stimulus will just come from his enjoyment from hitting the ball. Okay, and you do that all the way up until he's 7 years old. Everything he does, you give him a reward. Okay, and then it could be like Cruyff turn. Boom, correcting. Amazing. Open your mouth. Boom. Candy corn. Okay? And it's just child psychology.
Wow. That is the most tactical piece of advice I've been given up to this point. And as you can imagine, a future dad, I've been given every piece of advice in the book. Yeah. So this has been great. Listen, I love this.
Now people are going to think I'm a total lunatic, which is fine. It's fine.
No. You broke it down in a step-by-step manner in a way that makes sense to me in my brain. So I am forever grateful for that piece of it all. Jared Sagal, seriously, you do so much for the game, for your son, and for everybody in between.
Anytime.
We'd love to have you.
Thank you so much.
We'd love to have you back.
Whatever you guys need, I'm here for you guys.
Hell yeah.
Thank you so much. For everybody who tuned in, we'll link Jared's channel down below. Go check it out. Young Ronaldo is a fantastic series. Check out those videos down below too. And again, thank you both so much for tuning in to Box to Box presented by GOLZtv. We'll see you guys next time.
Andre, Jose, love you guys. Bye.
Thank you, Jared.
See you, brother.
We'll see you.
See ya.